So I'm going to give you 3 keys on how you can get your badass birthing on, whether it's a business, a screenplay, whether you want to give birth to a baby, a new partnership, or joint venture. So number 1, create healthy boundaries. So figure out where you're strongest and where you could use a lot of support. A lot of us, we come from a culture of saying yes, right? And so it's so important for us to learn to say no and learn to really value our assets and our strengths, and then put everything else aside and learn to delegate. So creating boundaries first is number 1. Number 2, create a sister circle, a consortium really of supporters. So these are your cheerleaders, these are people who believe in you, these are people who you can also confide in, and people who will also be your accountability partners in this journey. And the third thing that I'd like you to do is think about weeding out the people or practices that inhibit your progress. So think about the things that you have set, think about the goals that you've set, and whether or not there's blocks. And these could be real or perceived, but there's also people who may stand in the way with their actions or their attitudes, and maybe you can think about how you can adjust your circle of people that are around you so that you have a circle of support. So when we think about when women first get pregnant, one of the things that we, culturally do is sort of keep to ourselves the early stages, right? Before 12 weeks, we don't really talk about it. And that's really because people want to keep private the process that's underway. I think it's nice to share sometimes, but I also think it's really important that who you're sharing with are people you really feel like you can confide in. And so just like those first early days of pregnancy where you're really cultivating something very vulnerable and new, so is your business. So when you're cultivating something that's new and you feel vulnerable and you're very attached to an idea and a process, it's important to have people that you feel that you can trust and confide in that can help you, support you along the way. These are really important foundation tools to really jumpstart a badass business. So nutrition, yoga, and overall wellness plays a huge role in badass birthing. Number 1, what you eat becomes your blood, your thoughts, and your actions. You cannot save the world if you're eating Skittles for breakfast. So it's important to start the day eating a really well-rounded meal, packing snacks. I call it a pantry on the go. So whether that's when you go to the grocery store on the weekend, gathering the things that you need, the snacks that you love, whether that's granola bars or hummus, cut up vegetables and fruit, keep it at your desk or in your purse so that you have a snack so you don't feel tempted to eat things on the street on the go and grab the wrong things. Also, having a moment that you take, whether that's at work or at home, that's reflective, that's quiet, that's like your sanctity. It's so important to have what I call glow time, which is like a radical self-care practice, which is really you claiming time for yourself to mother yourself first. Whether you're a mom to be or you're learning to become the best iteration of yourself, it's important to take that time. So that could be 5 minutes. If you can spare 5 minutes, that can be a few hours. But every day, you want to make sure that you set aside this time. Whatever works for you, make sure that you put it in your calendar and make it devoted time. If we don't treat these aspects of our life as important, just as everything else is that we make space for, then they won't ever happen. They won't become practices. At the very least, they may become like habits that we have seldomly, but we want this to become sort of like the fabric of what makes up our really fruitful life and what helps us to sustain ourselves while at work and at home. So mindfulness and meditation is a really important component to a creative process. Quiet and space and time to reflect allows the subconscious mind to actually come to surface. It shuts off our thinking brain and allows our primal brain to become active. It shuts off the thinking brain where our ideas are sort of like fluttering and flickering constantly, and creates brain waves that are more smooth and more organized, allowing us to have moments of aha moments, or moments of deep reflection or connection, even moments of a total sense of well-being and connectivity with that which is around us. But I think for a lot of people who are, really embedded in creative processes and working in teams or writing books or whatever it is that they're doing that's creative, it is so important to quiet your mind. And when I say that, I don't mean that you're going to completely shut off thought processes and try to stop the things that are happening in your mind, but I mean actually extracting yourself from distraction. So taking yourself away from the normal distractions and sitting someplace or laying down someplace. It doesn't have to be on a cushion. It could just be in a chair, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a yoga mat. Some people's yoga is not yoga, right? So find what really moves you. Maybe it's dance. Maybe it's martial arts. Maybe it's a spin class where you feel most mindful. So find what that is for you and what kind of takes you out of your thinking brain and allows you to transcend thoughts. So just find something that really works with the rhythm of your life, but make sure that you take it seriously and know that it's a really healthy part of a fruitful life, and that it could be of tremendous use not just in that moment, but there's long-term results associated with a mind that stays placid. Self-care, family care, and career care. And balance. First, I'd like to say that I don't believe in balance. I think that balance is a myth. But I do believe in dynamic equilibrium. So if you see a tightrope walker and they're walking along a tightrope, there's one thing that keeps them on that rope, which is a pole that they hold. And when they're walking across, they're teetering on with that pole in the hand, and it's actually throwing them off balance. So the key is not to be in balance, which is really stillness. The key is to be able to juggle and be able to respond with agility to anything that comes. And I think that our lives are designed so that things are constantly in flux. And they're rich, and things happen, and then there's an emergency, and you have to put a fire out, and then kids have to be picked up, and then somebody gets sick, and there's all kinds of things that happen, and they never stop. You'll never have an empty email box. You'll never have all of your work completed. There's just tons of stuff. So you have to actually prioritize, and you have to decide really what's of value to you. So family. If you're looking to plan a family, or if you already have a family, I can speak from personal experience. You can have a career and you can have a family, and they can exist in the same life for the same person at the same time. And it can be enriching. Another thing is vacation. I know so many young people who are pushing themselves to achieve and think that they correlate vacation days that are saved with some sort of excellence or martyrdom. But you need to use your vacation days. You need to get away. So use that time, whether you take those 2 weeks at once or you spread them out. I like you to just do a visioning exercise and maybe collect some magazines, maybe the Travel and Leisure or Afar, and take some little sheets and tear them out and put them on a pin board or a whiteboard and start mapping out where you want to go. You can even take a globe and just spin it and then place your finger on a place and then go there. But go someplace, right? You work so hard, you're so committed. Really have something to look forward to in the year that allows you to retreat. So make sure to get on a plane, find a place in the world that you want to go, and take a vacation. Allow yourself to put your feet in some water, get a massage, be amongst the trees and nature, maybe go with a friend, but really take that time for yourself. You come back to work invigorated, and it will really help you step into a more gratifying aspect of your career when you take that time away. You feel really replenished to be able to come back and be your best ever. So support is critical along the birth continuum, whether it's a baby, whether it's a new business. You really need to find your best advocates and support system to help you have a thriving journey. So one of the first things I would say is really assessing the people that are around you, whether you can find a mentor or a sponsor. Mentorship is really important to, especially as you're growing and evolving, because there's aspects of yourself that are constantly changing and you're pushing the envelope for growth. So you need someone who's there to hold your hand. So in my business, as a birth doula, I support women along their journey into birth and motherhood, but also as women birth their businesses. So I'm seeing people who also need hand-holding along the continuum of entrepreneurship or business development. So and personal development as well. So I would say, one of the key factors to consider would be looking to see who are the women and men that are around you that you look up to, not that you want to become, but who have aspects and qualities that you want to actually embrace or embody. Another option would be really looking at the landscape of online resources and books. There's tons of educational assets out there. You can go to bookstores. The self-help section is the hugest section now. But when you go online, you can make very specific searches and find content like this, and find programs, find leadership trainings. You can find support groups, you can find retreats. There's all kinds of ways that you can gather to get this kind of information for support. So it's really more about what your time permits, how you're designing your life, and what you want to fit it in. Whether it's something that you want to do twice a week, if it's something that you need support with once a month, if it's something that you need more weekly hand-holding with, then you're going to want to take the path of finding someone or some sort of program outline that really allows you to thrive and really allows you to grow and catapult yourself to the next level based on what your needs are. It's really all about what serves you and what feels really good. When you go into that group meeting, you should come out there feeling good, feeling inspired, feeling empowered to take action. Same thing when you go to your coach, and the same thing if you go to your mentor. You just want to make sure that it feels really good, and it should feel good for all involved. So we can build our careers and build families at the same time. I built a business when my son was really small, and it actually was a business that was inspired by the pregnancy and birth of my son. And what I actually did during the times that he would be napping, his nap time was really my dream time. It's when I would write down my business goals and ideas. It was when I would take phone calls and talk to people to get my inspiration, but also to help, give me guidance along the path of entrepreneurship. Part of it is that we have to believe that there's a different possibility there that lies ahead of us. It's some things that we can't see because we don't see it in most workplaces, but we have to start to envision for ourselves what it is that we want and believe what can't be seen. Like, believe in this vision that you're going to actually bring into life. I had to create something that did not exist. So I had to really have faith and actually apply my skills and get people onboard people to start to believe in the idea and get behind me. So I think that's crucial in anything that you're doing, but you have to first believe in yourself. And if you don't believe in yourself first, you can't commit other people to jump on board with your vision. But that is so important. Have the vision and then start to rally people to support you in that. And whether that's inside of the workplace, whether that's at home, as you're sketching out what will become your future business, get people on board to support you. So, practical preparation and pregnancy. don't seem to go into the same sentence. But there is a way that you can financially prepare yourself for the journey into parenting. And there is also something to be said for, allowing things to happen. I don't think that we should be irresponsible and get pregnant and sort of expect everyone else to figure it out for us. But I do think that sometimes when you're unprepared for a certain set of challenges, it kind of catapults you into action, into creating a life that you want, or into maybe coming up with some solutions that are going to work for you down the line. The best ways to prepare is to find people who are your seniors in this process, find parents that you see who you think have it all together, and ask questions. I mean, none of us all have it together, but we can definitely answer questions, and I think a lot of us can provide a lens into the experience. Ask dads, where they stand and how they're, juggling things. Ask moms, go to groups, but just ask a lot of questions and see what resources are available to you, and particularly where you live, so that you can make the best choices for yourself and map out the best way possible, with also giving space for the unknowns to surface, because there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to account for, and there's going to be a lot of things that you won't, that also are on the table as factors. So be mindful in the process, but don't overplan anything. I think there's something to be said for a little spontaneity every now and again, but you do want to have like money saved in the bank. You do want to make sure that you have preparations in place like you would in any other aspect of your life. So building your career and having a baby at the same time can be really challenging, but it also can be really rewarding if you have the right assets for support in place. There are some really creative solutions to helping you get through. We see, all kinds of ways that people come up with, childcare scenarios. So there's childcare cooperatives where essentially parents will join together and they'll switch days where someone will watch most of the kids, or they'll divide the groups of children. And then the parents who have to go on meetings, interviews, who have longer work days maybe will go for that day, and then they'll swap out. And so people will organize their schedules around meeting the needs of the cooperative as their schedules permit. So these can be freelancers, these could be people who are writers, these could be people who have small businesses. This is really something that works if you're outside of the workplace, but also if you're in the workplace and have like a day that you ought, like some people will have like a Friday off, then you could be at the cooperative that day. So that's kind of something to explore. It's about mapping and figuring out what really makes sense for you and the trajectory you're on. And it's also about looking at your values. Like, what's the value system? What is important to you? Is it important to be the CEO, or is it important to be able to start a family? Like, in what order does that have to happen? And are you going to allow yourself the permission to start a family and pursue that path of becoming the head of your company? So I think it's a dialogue that you have to have with yourself, and it has to be constant. There's also groups. There's usually within different company structures or smaller groups that are set up. There's diversity groups, there's women's groups, there's all kinds of thought leadership type of events and groups structured around you being able to become a better version of yourself, whether that's through executive coaching, whether that's through after hours events. I think it's important to kind of go to those things and ask questions and see how other people are doing it, how they're succeeding at it as well. There's quite a few role model mamas that I admire, but I'm going to call out a few. One of them is Deborah Lee, the CEO of BET Networks. She's a client and good friend, but she's also an incredible mother. I've seen her in the most, really challenging situations of, production and events, and I've seen her give speeches on stages, and I've also seen her show up as a mom. and she's very committed to her children. And I love to see people who are equally committed to business as they are to family life. And she's someone who just makes sure that she's always there. She supports them. She's a real rock for her kids, and they're all grown now. But she provided like a very stable home, even though she had a lot of travel when they were younger. And watching someone who has grown-up children, because now my son's like going into teens, it's really nice to see sort of like how their parenting has shaped the children. So I really admire her for that. And then I also love that, as the kids left the nest, that she took time for herself to, she said, oh, I want to spend more time in New York, and got a place in New York. And so that she wasn't living in a place where the kids were no longer. So I thought that was really, interesting to see somebody, take that leap of faith and start almost like a new chapter of their life, So she's someone who I admire. And I also just like her business acumen and her sensibility, my mom, I think, is really great, not to cheat and just use family, but no nepotism, all of that aside. She raised 2 girls, a single mom, and she really committed herself to a goal that we were going to attend boarding school, we were going to attend Ivy League college, and we were going to have a good life. And she provided that, and she fought for that, and she defended us, the whole way through, adulthood. And so my mom is definitely somebody who pushes for me and who is committed to seeing me succeed. And also to my friends, she's very supportive of my girlfriends who are growing businesses. We all bounce ideas off of her. She's very good with legal advice, and so we all ask her those types of questions as well. But I admire her strength and her strength and her ability to not take no for an answer. She just never takes no. I've never seen anybody like that in my life besides my mom. So I really admire her for that and for really pushing us, because if it weren't for my mother's vision and her believing in me before I could really believe in myself, I wouldn't be where I am today. If I could speak to my younger self, I would tell my younger self to dream. I love this beautiful quote by Gloria Steinem, and it says, "Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning." And I think it's so important for us to be validated in our dreams. At a really young age, most of us can recall instances where we had our imaginations trampled, or ideas that we thought were really great were denounced or denied, and by people who probably we really love. And so I think that what's important to restore in ourselves is this ability to dream, and night visioning, being able to see in the dark, being able to see things that cannot be seen, that exist only in your mind, that exist only as ideas. Like our babies exist in darkness and they grow, and then all of a sudden they're birthed into the light. Our ideas, our visions, our dreams, our goals are the same. And so what I wish is that someone would have told me that it was okay to dream, that it was okay to explore the recesses of my desires, and that they would support me in pursuing that. And I think that if every girl and every young woman feels the power of her dreams, feels the power of her visioning, and knows that the sky is not the limit, but it's the view, then she can do anything. She could really do anything in this world. And so having our dreams trampled puts limitations on us, puts fears, allows us to start making excuses for ourselves, to play small. And so I just wish that I was told to be big and to be the biggest version of myself, and to not be quiet, and to not shut up, or not, sort of, dumb down, but, be disruptive, like be yourself. And if yourself is not somebody who's quiet and just like following the rules, you have to be the person that's inside, because the only fulfillment you'll have in life is if you really are fully expressive and allow yourself from within to come out, because the light that you have inside is unrelenting. It won't like stay inside. It's not meant to be in darkness. It's meant to be cultivated in darkness, but it's meant to be birthed into light. So hold steadfast to your dreams, really cultivate your visions, and give birth to your goals on every level, and have faith that you're capable of it the entire time.